Welcome to the Beyond Jiu-Jitsu podcast, episode number 53.
Bow, bow, bow. I thought you made it look like you were gonna press it. You made it look like you were gonna press a button that was gonna have a sound effect. You led that up so much, like there was gonna be some beat drop.
Yeah.
And your finger was hovering over your little like button pressing station. Then you
I don't want to talk about it. I fucked it up, man. I fucked it up.
Bro,
anyway, episode number 53. Today we are talking about how to get the most out of private lessons. Private lessons. How many private lessons have you had throughout your career? If
have
any?
I had as a student?
As a student.
Maybe I was not prepared for this question.
Got some tricks up my sleeve today. Not prepared for this question, mate.
I've only ever maybe like 5.
Okay. Yeah, right.
Instantly I was going to say 1 because I've only ever paid for one private. Like I've only ever gone and done one private lesson.
Wow.
But some of the time in Brazil there were I kind of did some private lessons with some black belts where we did a bit of like a swapsies where I would help them with their English and they would, so it was private lessons, but it was a bit sort of more casual. It wasn't like I went and did a private lesson.
Right. A formalized structured lesson, like an exchange where I give you X dollars, you give me an hour or 45 minutes or what have you.
Yeah. So it was a bit more casual, but I did a few of them. But if you ignore those, I've only ever done one private lesson.
Well, I guess that I'm the expert today. So
how many have you done?
Oh, I've done heaps, like more than 5.
With who?
Jeremy Skinner.
Oh, yeah. You've done heaps of Jeremy. Yeah. But I mean, would you consider them privates? Because
yes, I paid for them. Damn straight.
Okay.
Definitely fucking privates.
Well, there you go. Well, I didn't know, because
I've done a bunch, like particularly
some of the listeners might not know, like you and Jeremy know each other out prior to Jiu-Jitsu.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I wasn't sure if it was more of it's just two mates hanging out doing a private, or was it more sort of like
definitely doing private, like definitely like money was exchanged. Like let's put that out there. I started before I started doing privates in my first month of training. So
coffee's so fucking hot.
Yeah, good.
It's great.
Excellent.
I love it.
Adam Charles, black belt, Alliance Sydney, loves his very strong hot coffee, like ridiculously hot. I saw a meme where there was like this guy going into a barista shop and he orders extra hot coffee and the barista looks at the other barista and goes, burn the milk. And that's you, dude. You fucking have shit coffee. Anyway.
No, whoa. Calm down. Whoa. Throwing me under the bus, straw drinking coffee. Weirdo.
Yeah, I drink coffee out of straw. What of it?
I had someone message me, a friend of mine actually, who I got a jumper from him for Christmas. He has a
like
really
a hoodie.
No, just a regular jumper.
Okay,
like a hoodie without a hood.
Yeah, right.
A jumper,
like a sweater.
A sweater for our American listeners, I guess. Yeah. And he's got his own brand of clothing and accessories called Rolling and Tumbling.
Oh, man.
So my brother actually got it for me because we did Secret Santa or whatever. My brother was like, oh, rolling, tumbling, like kind of for someone who doesn't do jiu-jitsu, like my brother doesn't.
Yeah.
I mean, he at least knows that rolling is a word we use in jiu-jitsu.
He Googled jiu-jitsu streetwear.
So he got me this jumper. And then anyway, I was talking to this friend of mine. If you want to check him out, Rolling and Tumbling is his Instagram. And he had listened to some episodes of the podcast. And I don't know, we just got onto chatting. I don't know how, but he ended up saying along the lines of, I still don't drink my coffee with a straw though. I can't
Shout out to all the straw drinking coffee drinkers.
But his background is from Chile. And you know how in South America they drink that tea with that straw?
No.
You've never seen it?
No.
Oh man, they drink it in Brazil too. I'm
uncultured.
That I can't.
I'm an uncultured swine.
I think we mentioned this last episode whenever we're kind of like having to Google something or whatever and you got the listeners sitting there listening and they're like, I know the answer.
Dude, this happened. You know how episode 51, the episode that just released and you were trying to think of Mike Goddard or someone like that.
Mike Goldberg.
Goldberg, whatever, the UFC guy. There was a guy like screamed it in the comments. It was like, it's Mike Goldberg.
Still was it?
Yeah.
You've never seen this tea thing?
No. So Adam's showing me like this tea pot
I
thing.
think they just call it
mate
mate or matcha or whatever. Yeah, it's like
matcha tea is like green tea.
What color do you think that is?
Matcha is Japanese, I think. Anyway.
Look, shut up.
Okay.
It's Chimimahal. I mean, look, anyway.
This is not translating in audio well.
People are going to know what I'm talking about.
Okay.
They have it in this. Ask Samir about it.
Okay.
He'll know all about it. It's this tea that you drink, but it's like drinking loose leaf tea. So you drink it with a straw that has like a filter in it,
smart.
sort of thing. And so he drinks that. And yeah, that conversation led into, but I still don't drink my coffee with a straw.
Oh, that's okay.
So my hot coffee.
It's hot.
It's hot because I mean, I like it hot and then to get cold. I don't know why.
That's weird,
but,
man.
But you could give it to me, let's say the correct temperature is like 70 degrees or whatever. Just say you serve it to me at 70. I'll be like, nah, it's too cold. But serve it to me at 71 and then I let it dip to 70. I'm like, perfect.
You weirdo. But anyway, back onto privates. I started private lessons in September of 2020 and I started Jiu-Jitsu in September of 2020.
So as someone who has done a bunch of has done a bunch of privates, because sometimes I get white belts ask me the question as to whether they should do privates.
Yeah, I can answer that.
Yeah, so I mean, before I give my answer, as someone who did do privates pretty much from the beginning, was it money well spent?
Yes.
Like
Yes.
Why?
Okay, so I actually did a YouTube.
This is actually going to like bury myself in a hole because
Yeah.
my answer to the question when students ask that
Is no, probably, yeah.
Like, long story short, my answer is like, no, you shouldn't need to do privates
If your instructor's giving you enough
if you've got a good
information,
enough instructor,
Yeah.
but I'm your instructor
Yeah.
and you went off and did privates.
I think you just answered your question there.
Shit.
I actually did a YouTube video on this in October of 2020 and it's called Getting Private Jiu-Jitsu lessons as a white belt. So I did a whole YouTube video. It's one of my very early videos. So it's pretty shit house. If you want to look it up, it's pretty funny.
Trying to get those double-digit views.
Yeah, baby. I got over 1,000 views on that video.
Do
Shut
ya?
up. Yeah,
Oh, good
like
on you.
1,500. Shut up. Anyway, so the way I think about this is an analogy I use in my own mind is thinking back to when I first started lifting at the gym. When I first started lifting at the gym, and this is advice for everyone out there that is doing that, get a personal trainer as soon as you can. The sooner you get a personal trainer, the better, because you will form such terrible, terrible habits that you don't even know are bad habits until someone corrects them. I did get a personal trainer, but it was after about 12 months of lifting.
I'm so scared of that term personal trainer because it's such a vague description.
Oh yeah,
And
it is.
Like when I hear personal trainer, I just go, nah, it's like a anytime fitness
It
first.
can be, but it can also be someone with a PhD and like
get a good trainer,
Yeah.
lifting coach,
or
someone.
strength and conditioning coach, depending on what your goals are. Just get someone with more experience than you, even if they're not like the best, person going, and maybe they are new and they're starting out and they're young and they're enthusiastic. It doesn't, it isn't super important depending on what position you're in and what your goals are. But if you're just starting out lifting, get a PT. So I got a PT around about that 12-month mark. Best decision I ever made. I did a whole bunch of sessions with him. Paid, it wasn't super expensive, but it was enough to be like, I'm going to get my money's worth sort of thing. Because I was young at the time, didn't have much money to begin with, and it was
You have to sell all your Pokemon cards.
Yeah, well, yeah. No.
I still got them.
Yeah, my Charizard's worth now. I'm so not into Pokemon. But it was one of the best decisions I made because it did a few different things for me. First of all, it gave me so much more motivation because, again, I was paying someone to train. Secondly, when I wasn't doing training sessions with this PT, I was pushing way harder because he'd made me realize how hard I should be training and I could be training. And thirdly, is he fixed my form on so many different exercises, right? And I've gone through cycles of that throughout my lifting career, if you will, is seeking out professional help depending on what stage I'm at the time. So
Well,
that's the analogy.
yeah. So I feel like you're trying to draw a parallel between that doing privates early on
Mm.
in your jiu-jitsu journey or whatever is going to hopefully help negate developing bad habits. Is that the parallel line you're trying to draw?
One of many. But then just to circle back, and I've got a whole bunch of points to how to get the most out of doing your privates if you do decide to. But in the decision making process, you also have to ask yourself if like it's a money issue as well, because jiu-jitsu, particularly in the region that we live in, is not cheap. So if you're already paying, $50 or whatever it is per week to train jiu-jitsu, and you're going,
for people listening, that's pretty standard in Sydney.
Yeah, very standard.
Like $50 a week for your membership is on the cheaper side. Yeah,
exactly.
There's some gyms that charge like $65, $70 a week.
Exactly. It goes up from there, right?
Yeah.
So if you're already paying that amount of money per week and you're going like 4 times per week, do you need to do private lessons? No, you don't need to do anything, right? You would progress just as well if you just showed up to class and your instructor and your coach, taught you all these things and broke the bad habits before they form. Absolutely. However, do I think they are beneficial? Of course they are. Like, you're mad not to realize that there is benefit in doing private lessons. It's just a dollar versus return investment that you need to consider. Am I going to can I afford it? And is it important enough for me to spend this money? Is the question I would ask yourself.
Yeah. And if money isn't an issue for some people, it's not.
Yeah.
Even then, like, of course you're going to get something out of privates, but I know people who have gone a huge amount of time in their jiu-jitsu lives exclusively doing privates. And for me, like, that's definitely the incorrect approach.
Yeah, totally agree.
You can't just train with one body type and one person. Like, everyone moves a little bit different in jiu-jitsu, and it's like learning a language. You can't just speak it to the one person, because then all of a sudden you try to speak it to a different person and they use different slang and they, speak in a different way or a different, speed or whatever it is. You have to speak to multiple people to get comfortable with the language as a whole. And,
Absolutely.
And jiu-jitsu is the same.
Yeah, that's definitely a wrong approach. That's like the celebrity belt system that we're talking about,
a little bit,
where they only drill with their instructor or whomever.
Yeah. So leave Ashton alone, all right?
Oh,
You're already I don't know how much value there is in doing privates super early on, though. Briefly just said, I think if you're at a sound enough gym, you shouldn't need to. Well, I mean, look, there's value in it, right? And all jokes aside of if you've got a good coach, you shouldn't need to, and we're sitting here and I'm your coach, and maybe you did feel that you needed to do it, but I would think that you didn't feel like, I'm lacking so much from my regular classes that I need these private lessons.
Honestly, I wanted to like fast track this shit.
Right.
I was like, fuck this. I'm going to be training extra, because even in my first time I started training, I was training like every day, and I was doing the double, like 5:30, 6:30, pretty much every day.
Yeah.
I went hard in the paint, and then I was doing privates on top of that.
Yeah.
That's how I got so much better so quickly, because anything that I wasn't able to like ask you in detail, hey, I'm having this and this problem, or I don't really understand this concept. In the private lessons with Jeremy, I'd say, hey, I'm having this and this problem. Can we workshop it? And we did.
And, obviously it's always specific to the individual, because even if you've got a really good coach who helps you out a lot in the group classes and whatnot, it is still a group class. Yeah. So, for example, you would know I answer any questions in classes. It's not like I've probably said this on a previous episode, my first ever jiu-jitsu coach, if you asked him a question in group class, he didn't answer it. He'll go, oh, you got to book a private.
So,
so ridiculous, right?
That makes me so mad.
I answer any questions, even like this morning at class. I've already taught a class this morning, and one of the guys was asking me a question, had absolutely nothing to do with what we were doing. And it wasn't like he derailed the class, like it was an appropriate time to ask the question. And of course, I answered the question for him. But so even if you have a coach like that, it still isn't a private class. It's not your coach can't give you an hour of their time because they've got other students to attend to.
Yeah.
And again, for some people as well, you know, they do need a little bit more. You know, some people learn at different speeds. Some people pick it up really quick, and other people, they might have the best, most attentive, caring, you know, instructor who gives them, you know, a biased amount of attention in group classes, but that individual still might feel like, oh, I need privates because I'm just not getting it.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I've taught people like that. I mean, I've still got students in the gym that I'll be like, yep, cool, yep, and then put your left hand here. Left. Well, that's your foot. So you know, try your left hand. You know, like, and you're still you. So those people, okay, maybe they're going to need it in the beginning of their jiu-jitsu journey.
I definitely didn't need it. I would say that I was greedy and wanted it bad. I wanted it bad.
So if you're in that, let's say you've gotten to the decision of your a white belt or newer to jiu-jitsu. I don't want to just say white belt because you can be a very advanced white belt, right? And pretty much a blue belt. And so it's a different approach to a private. Let's say you're still super new. I then don't think there's really a lot of value in doing a private with, to just give it a very broad title, a black belt. I don't think there's there's value in it. I don't think it's worth the transaction because a black belt will charge you more. And if you're in your first 1 or 2 months of jiu-jitsu, whatever that black belt is going to be helping you with in a private, like a purple belt or brown belt instructor could show you that. Like it's going to be super basic stuff. You don't need to be, and black belts charge more, right? Like here in Sydney, the cheapest pretty much a black belt will charge you for a private is like $100 an hour. But, you know, like I charge 120. I think Jeremy charges similar-ish or maybe more. He's got a bigger name, you know. So I know some.
I'm pretty sure I got mates rates. So.
Right. Yeah. So I know of some in black belt instructors who have got a bit more of a name for themselves and they charge like $200, $250 for a private, right? And if you're in your first 1 or 2 months of jiu-jitsu, you don't need to pay that much money to learn how to hip escape and technical stand up or do a cross collar choke from close guard. Of course, they're maybe going to have more awesome details that the purple or brown belt instructor might not have, but I don't think it's a worthy investment.
I totally agree. Yeah, totally agree.
You know, I even personally, you know, I don't even really like doing privates for lower belts because I don't want to say it's going to sound so
it's like
wanky.
Stealing candy from a baby.
Well, I mean, I don't enjoy it as much because I don't enjoy teaching hip escapes, right? Like, you know, it's kind of like my approach to teaching kids in jiu-jitsu. I love teaching the kids and they're heaps of fun. And, you know, it can be, and most of the listeners know by now, it's even got nothing to do with me being a dad now, but I am a dad. So I like kids, right? And they're a lot of fun, but I didn't get into jiu-jitsu to do that. You know, if I gave it a crappy analogy, it's like, well, if you were a maths, you know, teacher and like you would want to teach maths, like high level maths at a university or something, opposed to maths to year 2 kids. Like, I mean, I want to teach high level jiu-jitsu. So if I'm giving a private to a white belt, I'm not really being able to teach like high level jiu-jitsu. Like I want to do privates with, you know, blue belts, purple belts, brown belts, other black belts where it's like, okay, now we're talking really high level. Be like 2 physics professors sitting and conversing.
Yeah.
Right? They want to talk about really high level physics. They don't want to like have a PhD physicist sit there and talk to a primary school student about physics.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know? And so I don't think it's, if you're new in your jiu-jitsu journey and you want to do privates, that's cool. I don't think you need to invest in paying a ridiculous amount to do it with some famous black belt because like.
Unless you're bankrolled.
Unless you're, but yeah,
super rich.
But like even then, like imagine if you, like let's not today, Kieren, but let's go 12 months ago, Kieren, when you first did the privates with Jeremy. Imagine if you went and decided, oh, I'm going to do a private with like, you know, with Taliesin Suarez or with Levi or Mikey Musameshi, and you're going to be doing all these like bolo stuff, and you're like, well, I can't even fucking invert.
Yeah.
Yet,
Straight
you
up.
know?
Jeremy
Like,
taught me how to invert.
right?
In the privates.
I mean, you don't need someone who's charging you, you know, those guys get away with charging $400-$500 an hour. Imagine paying someone $500 an hour to learn how to invert.
It's ridiculous. Yeah, obviously. But yeah, totally. I'll reiterate, I really didn't need to do private lessons. I was getting so much jiu-jitsu, I couldn't even handle it, right, in the beginning. But I just was so competitive and wanted to be just a beast. I didn't even have my first stripe when I was getting, and I had 2 or 3 privates under my belt. You know
That's
what I mean?
what you just said then reminds me of my time in Brazil when you said you were getting so much you couldn't even handle it.
Yeah.
Remember when I was training in Brazil and one of my friends in Canada, and, you know, we'd speak online or whatever, he trained up there too. He was like, oh, you know, what YouTube channels do, and this was before there was still content online, but not compared to today. Like BJJ Fanatics didn't exist. Flow Grappling didn't exist. There wasn't this huge amount of even YouTube content for jiu-jitsu that there is today. So he'd be like, oh, what channels do you watch like for jiu-jitsu? I said, man, none. I said, I get so much, like I'm doing like 4 or 5 hours a day of jiu-jitsu, and I'm in the room with Fabio Gurgel, Michael Lange, Léo Nogueira, Bernardo Faria, you know, Serginho Moraes, you know, dude, I don't need to watch. I can't even handle all the amount I'm already getting. That's already too much. I don't need to go watch more jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You know, so I guess it was kind of similar to you. You know, you got a lot of value out of them, but it just reminded me of that when you said I was getting so much jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
But, you know, it definitely helped, right? I remember back then you did struggle to invert. I mean, now you invert no problem. And I always say this to beginners. Some people invert very naturally, but most people don't. And I always say to them, it's not necessarily an easy movement, but the sport has evolved so much that it's now considered a basic movement. So you do have to learn it quite early on. And you did struggle with it in the beginning. So, you know, if you ignore the financial transaction, was it worth having the time for someone to one-on-one really help you invert? For sure, because you learn how to invert.
Yeah, exactly. And then I think the reason I got so much out of them was my approach to the actual privates themselves.
So I do want to hear your approach, because I was about to, my opinion is the way to get the most out of your private. And there's a few points, but just before we move on from this, if you're really new to jiu-jitsu, how do you get the most out of them? I have a feeling your approach is going to be the opposite to what I'm about to say, which is it's probably the only time my advice would be just to kind of go in and just do what you're told. Like if you're that new to jiu-jitsu, you might be there doing hip escapes and technical stand-ups. You know, everyone's different, right? But
no, we worked on like Z guard and like transitions from triangles and arm bars but I had a very clear, hey, I'm interested in this, because at that point in jiu-jitsu, you can fucking work on just about anything with the exception of like really advanced, you know, bolo techniques or whatever, and for it to be beneficial. So I'm pretty sure I said to Jeremy, I want some subs. I had like one sub, which was an Americana, and I was like, I just want some subs. I'm big, I'm strong, I'm muscling people into positions, but I can't finish them because I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. Just give me something. And yeah, he gave me a bunch.
But that's already better than, I mean, not better. That's already that would be my generic advice for how to approach privates. The only time I would say to not go in prepared is, if you're super new. Like another common one is, I get this all the time. People will send an inquiry through to the gym saying they want to get into jiu-jitsu, but they want to start with some private classes before they jump into the group classes. And sometimes
that's a confidence thing, I'd say.
It is, but also, you know, I get people, one guy recently sent an inquiry through, and he had said he had like quite a severe back injury or something, you know, so I get that. Someone wants to start, you know, in a safer environment, I guess, than being thrown into a group class. So in that case, you know, if you're super new, that's when you kind of don't have to do anything. You're just turning up and doing what you're told. But yeah, ignoring that, my advice for getting the most out of a private is you have to, don't walk in and be like, what do you think I should work on? That is the dumbest way to approach privates. It's so vague, and you can get away with that a bit if you're doing your private with your instructor who sees you train and trains with you all the time. Right? But even then, it's very vague. Like, imagine if I went to do a private with Jeremy and said, what do you think I should work on? He'd be like, bro, we rolled once 12 months ago and it was a flow roll. Like, and I've never seen you roll since. Like, how the hell would I know what you need to work on? Right? It's a terrible way to approach privates.
Then you spend the first like 15, 20 minutes like, oh, okay, well, tell me about your game. Tell me about this.
Yeah.
And then you've just burnt like half your time.
Well, I mean, yeah, but there can be also value in that. Like, I've given heaps of privates where it's part of it's the physical side of it, but also, man, you would have to agree with this. How often do I, during classes, whether it's lining up at the end of class or during a technique, do I talk about, concepts of positions or, mentally beating someone in a position? Like, there's so many other parts of jiu-jitsu. So sometimes people will enjoy the private when you just help them change the way, like you help them have an epiphany just by explaining something.
Okay.
Like, I don't know, what's one more recently? Let's talk about your passing. And, I'm trying to explain to you, operating past that knee line in between the knee and the hip, dominating that space. And, it can just, or here's the other one I always say, no, man, you're not in their guard, they're in your pass.
Yeah.
Like sometimes you can just be conversing with a student, whether it's in a private or not, but, and you can really help them go, oh my God, like that's a massive aha moment for me. I've never thought about it like that. That changes everything. So sometimes I wouldn't consider it burning time when you're just sitting talking. Like it can be super valuable.
I was more alluding to if you come in like super unprepared and then you're just burning time, like trying to figure out what you're going to work on. I don't know.
Yeah. Even if you're doing your private with your coach, it's a shit way to go into it. You should always be going into a private with, doesn't need to be specific techniques, but you have to go in with an idea of what you want to improve. And if you're doing a private with a good coach, whether they're your coach or not, you might not even end up doing that. So if we go back to a PT analogy, imagine if I came to you and I was like, oh, Kieren, I want to be able to, deadlift 200 kilos. But then in your assessment of me, or as we start working together, you realize that, okay, man, we've got some serious like issues with this muscle group and stuff. Like we need to fix that before we can do that. You know what I mean? Like if you go in like, oh, I want to learn how to bolo in this, but you can't even invert or whatever, right? So if you have a good coach, you might not even end up doing what you wanted to do when you went in there, but you have to go in with an idea.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Right? So like you could go in like you said, okay, man, I'm getting to this position, but I got no subs. So then be like, all right, cool. Well, let's make sure you've got good control of the position, blah, 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 blah. All right, you already understand the Americana. Let's build off that.
Yeah, definitely.
All right.
Definitely.
The other bit of, if you're someone who just likes to do private, like, you want to do privates with X, Y, and Z. I know some people that are, as soon as someone's in town, oh, I want to do a private with Lepri. Oh, I want to do a private with Galval. Like whenever someone's available, they'll want to do a private with them. If you're one of those people, that's cool too. But then go into those privates specifically wanting to learn what those people are good at.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
Like if I was going to do a private with, let's say Musameshi, right? I'm not going to ask him about how do I do, be really heavy half guard on top and how do I stack pass? No, man. Like if I'm doing a private with him, I'm wanting to know about like bolos and crab ride and, foot locks and whatever. If I'm doing a private with Kieren, I'm going to be like, sick man, show me like all this worm guard stuff or whatever. kind of be like, you're not going to do a private with Craig Jones and be like, show me a cross collar choke.
Yeah.
You know, like I really want to improve my,
Like,
I really want to improve my spider guard.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not saying that Craig couldn't help you with your spider guard, but I mean, hey, if you're investing the money to do a private with someone who specializes and is famous for a certain group of movements, man, like leverage that.
Yeah, 100%. And if you were to go into a private with Craig Jones, you'd probably want to watch his instructional on whatever technique you want to learn and say, hey, in your instructional, I saw this, I still don't understand. So like if you're going to spend the money to do a private with Craig, I'm assuming it's a lot of money. You would want to even do your homework one level deeper, I'd say.
I mean, if you really wanted to get your value out of it, yeah. I mean, but depends how much money you want.
How many people out there? How many people are we listening to? Like, are listening to this that are going to be booking in a private with Craig Jones? Unless you're in Austin. So I have some pretty more overarching generic list. I have a list.
You always have lists.
I always have lists, but I have a list on how to approach a private. If you would like to hear it. So
no, I'm good.
Yeah.
Yeah, bring it on.
Okay. So the first thing I recommend, if it's available to you, and obviously you'd want to ask the instructor first to see if this is okay. Maybe in some cases it might not be okay. I don't know. I've never run into that, but I'd film it. I recommend filming the private. So
yeah, it's a great idea. Yeah. I know of some people who won't let you.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, that makes sense. But
you know,
it doesn't make sense. But yeah, I can.
I think it made more sense before we lived in such a
before the internet.
Yeah, pretty much. Like, you know.
So what's the worst that can happen? Like, fuck.
I don't know, man. But there's also, there's heaps of coaches who won't let you film seminars when they teach seminars. You know, I don't kind of get it. I mean, I guess I got it before this wave of instructionals because I guess it was like, hey, man, you know,
I make money off this.
I make money off this. This is my intellectual property. But I mean, how is me watching Craig teach a seminar any better than me watching him, you know,
teach a DVD?
His instructional. You know, the value in seminars and privates is that it's in person and you get to ask those specific questions. Like even if I watch an instructional, I'll still see something and be like, oh, I wish I could ask this question and be given the answer, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, if you can film it, that's great. Yeah, great advice. So because I used to do some privates with a guy who then, let's say, you know, within the hour, I don't know, 5 techniques we did. Right at the end, like we would do, you know, like 55 minutes of the private, then the last 5 minutes just to like summarize. Actually, he didn't even film the whole private. He just asked to film right at the end, just me doing like 1 rep. Well, actually, I would do 1 rep of the technique and then he would do it. So we would be like, oh, just so I can remember, I can then look back and see you do the technique and then see myself do it.
Yeah, that would work as well. Any sort of filming. I filmed like the whole thing start to finish, including audio. And I have all my privates in a little archive. And actually in preparation for this episode, I watched them.
I was going to ask you, have you gone back and watched them and you've listened to yourself being like, Jeremy, what's the heel hook?
Yeah. No, but it's very interesting.
What do you mean by the knee line, Jeremy?
What's a knee? No, but I funnily enough, I watched back, I think it was my 2nd or 3rd instruction private with Jeremy. And what he was teaching me, I don't even do anymore. Like it's not my game at all. It's and I want to fuck around with it today because I'm like, oh shit, I really like that, and I don't do it. I don't even try it. So it's going from Z guard to a triangle. I don't do that. Like when I'm in Z guard now, I try for a Kimura, and when that fucks up, I just try and sweep him.
Yeah, look, in your defense, you don't necessarily have the legs for Z guard. Any listeners who aren't quite sure, you know, Z guard is specific to being able to cross your feet. Yeah. Right. When you have that knee shield in, can you get away with not crossing your feet? I mean, kind of, but then it's not Z guard. It's just a knee shield. Like the strength of Z guard
is the cross.
Is that your feet are crossed. Yeah. It's like a closed half guard. Yeah. Is what Z guard is.
I still try and fuck around with Z guard. If I can't cross my feet, then I go up to the knee shield, and I much prefer being using that knee shield and being in tight anyway.
Well, thanks for the heads up. When we roll later, I know you were going to try triangle me from
we're
the
not rolling.
Z-guard.
We ain't
Bro, I like this. I'm lucky we didn't start this podcast like 10 minutes earlier, because on my way here, I was literally just like, because I ate a whole muffin and croissant on the way. We have a bakery right
Wait,
next
so
to the
you went
gym.
to a bakery and you didn't get coffees?
Shut up. We have a bakery right next to the gym, and sometimes they give me free shit.
Nice.
And they gave me a muffin and a croissant.
Nice.
And then on the drive here, I was like, I'll eat both of them. And then I was just like, oh my God. Oh my God.
Serves you right.
So I'm cool with the not rolling, bro.
That's
It's
karma.
going to take me all day to digest this.
Yeah. So, well, first point in my list is film.
Yep.
Film them. I recommend filming the whole thing, or you could do what your bloke did and just film like at the end, like
Just
a
to have a
summary.
little summary.
Yeah. Film it. I highly recommend
I
it.
would argue, I think it's even a great idea to, even if you film the whole thing, do a little summary at the
absolutely.
end. Because then if you are wanting a quick revision, you don't have to sift through an hour of
That's what
of
Jeremy
footage.
does. Whatever he teaches, he then goes, oh, okay, so today we did this and recaps
I
it.
always do that,
Yeah,
regardless of with that filming or not. I
good
always
technique
get them at the
to teach.
end to do like at least one rep of everything that we went through.
Yeah, 100%. And then the second is I write it down. Regardless of the fact that I filmed it, I then write it down either as soon as I get home or like after the private. I make as many notes as I can. So that's point number 2, because it's the process of physically handwriting that will help you remember. And we've spoken about this so many times about note taking in jiu-jitsu. It's very, very important. I highly recommend everyone do it. But that's point number 2.
Do you remember, like, whatever point it was last year, when you first started taking notes and everyone made fun of you and they were like, oh, look at Kieren, dear diary, blah, blah, blah. And I said, because you were already taking notes, but then you came to me, oh, what do you think? Do you use shorthand, blah, 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 blah. I gave you some of my old notebooks just so you could have a look at how I used to take notes.
Funny story on that. When I opened up the first page of like one of your random notebooks, that like just the random page that I opened up to, it was like 3 pages written out of like this concept that Fabio taught you, and it fucking blew my mind. I can't even remember like.
Well, obviously didn't blow your mind that much.
It really did. And I'm pretty sure I still implement it, and I'm pretty sure it had to do with passing, and it might have been.
I don't remember what the concept was, but I do remember you saying that to me. That
like,
one of the
holy
first
fuck.
pages you read, it wasn't even a technique, right?
It was a concept.
It was just and it kind of goes back to what I said. That I know you were saying you can waste time just talking about your jiu-jitsu, but going back to what I said, there can be a lot of value in like having that person's time for an hour.
Yeah.
Let's say, man, like imagine how valuable it would be to sit with, any of the past, present, or future high-level competitors like, Galvin or Craig or,
Felipe Pena,
Pena or whatever. And imagine the value in just sitting and being like, oh, can you just talk to me about how you prepare for competitions or your competition mindset, or how do you weight cut, or like there's so many things you could learn from these people without even
What's your steroid cycle?
Yeah.
Come out.
Where do you get your acai and Jesus from? Yeah.
Yes.
But yeah, I remember you telling me that you read that and you were like, man.
What the fuck? Yeah. Straight up. So that's super valuable to have.
Yeah, but anyway, just to finish what I was saying.
And
then I was defending you. People were like, Kieren, Dear Diary. And I was like, yeah, you make fun of Dear Diary Kieren now, but Kieren's going to be kicking your ass soon. That's what's happened now. All those bitches that were making fun of you have quit the gym.
Yeah.
No. Now you smash them.
Yeah.
That's what they get.
So yeah, write things down. Definitely important. I still have all my notes from all the privates I've done. And then point number 3 is to drill it. Like fucking drill it. Grab someone and drill what you did.
Yeah, what's the point of doing it if you don't then
spend all
try
this
to
money,
implement some muscle memory into it?
You spend all the time, all the money, all the effort, all the preparation, and if you don't actually find someone to then drill that technique, or as you spoke about last episode 52, I believe, like drill it, solo drill by yourself.
Yeah.
Was that 51? Yeah. How to train when you can't train.
51, right?
Yeah, that was 51. Sorry, excuse me. Episode 51. You said that You can even just by yourself at home on the mat, whatever, close your eyes and drill the technique without anyone. If you can't find anyone willing to drill with you, which I highly doubt, because if you come with all this information, which leads me smoothly into point number 4,
Look
teach
at
someone
you
else.
fucking segues, bro. Look at
Teach
you go.
someone. So after my privates, I did some of them with Zach, but not all of them. Most of them were done by myself. But if I didn't do it with Zach, I would then attempt with the footage, with the notes, teach Zach what I learned.
Like you did them with him as in Zach went to the
Yeah,
privates with
Zach
you?
went to some of them.
Jeremy. No, it's like it's like an instructor's dream to teach a private where you have where you don't have to have the techniques drilled on you.
Exactly,
that's the best.
Yeah, that's what Jeremy said, to say like if there was 2 of us there, it would be easier for him to correct the technique.
But it is as well.
Which it is.
Like,
it makes sense.
Like it's better for the instructor because they can see what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And at any point in time, if they want to feel it, like let's say it's something a bit more nuanced and I want to feel. Yeah, the instructor can always jump in and be like, hang on, do it on me so I can feel it.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. But it's also not only is it better for the student because the instructor can be watching it from all angles and can sub in at any time, but it's also just like way nicer as you're the instructor not having it drilled on you.
Yeah.
That's funny. I know another student of mine did a private with, I can't remember who it was with, but they did a private with someone last year and they charged more to have 2 people in the private, which part of me is like, okay, like
you're not getting as personal as service though.
Yeah, like that's the flip side. I was kind of like, okay, I get it because, it's not kind of like, then where do you draw the line, where
we get if 5 people.
That's right. Yeah. If it's one person, if it's $100 for a private and then, it's still $100 for that second person to come in. Like, where's the line before it's a seminar? And then all of a sudden, where's the point where everyone needs to pay their share?
Yeah.
But at the same time, I was like, but it's like easier. It's like less work for the coach.
I draw the line at 2. Like any more than 2, then it's a different situation.
Then it's like a group private and people need to be paying that, and then maybe it's $80 per person, so it's cheaper for the individual. But anyway.
But yeah, point number 4 is teach someone else if you can. Like I think that when you teach something, you get to learn it twice, right?
Yep.
And you need to, if you go into a private knowing that you're going to teach it to your buddy afterwards, then you're going to pay more attention because you're like, fuck, I need to be able to remember this to teach it regardless. So that's, whether you do that or not, regardless, I think point number 3 is very important. Have someone to drill with. Repetition equals mastery. So definitely drillers are killers, all that good shit. And point number 4 finally is
5.
5.
Counting,
I can't count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Put yourself in those positions. Actually, okay, so you've done the private, you've learnt the new techniques, you've drilled the techniques, you've taught someone else the techniques. Now actually attempt them in a roll. I don't care. Like you say this all the time. It doesn't matter if you're trying something new. It doesn't matter if you get your guard pass. It doesn't matter if you get subbed by a less experienced lower belt or whatever. It doesn't fucking matter. You're there to improve that specific technique, that specific position. I struggle with this because I got a big fuck off ego. But if I'm working on something specifically, like for example, I'm working on not conceding side control, I'm going to turtle instead. Like instead of just conceding side control and then work on escaping, just turtle straight away and risk getting my back taken and work my turtle defenses. I've got my back taken a fuckload doing that, but I'm still trying. Like I'm going for it. It's the same principle here. You have to then implement whatever you learn in your rolling.
Yeah. And like you said, it's just training. Like sometimes if you're doing competition training where, the goal of the training is not conceding anything or whatever, all right, it's probably not the time to be trying new shit because you're doing comp training. But if it's just training in general, yeah, man, it doesn't matter. Like I know we're all competitive. People who continue to do jiu-jitsu have some level of competitiveness in them. But, I'll sometimes try to invent something new. Just mid-roll, I'll be like, oh, I wonder if this will work. And then a white belt passes my guard. And I'm like, well, shit, that doesn't work, does it? Well, it completely didn't work out how I thought it would. No different to like a chef trying to invent some new dish and then being like, well, that tastes like shit.
Yeah.
You just got to try and be a bit more humble about it.
Yeah.
What was it we were saying yesterday? Why be humble when you can pummel or something like that?
Yeah.
Put that on a shirt.
Yeah. Or a Beyond Jiu-Jitsu rash guards coming soon. Beyond Jiu-Jitsu rash
Bow, bow,
guards.
bow. Yeah. But I think that's really sound advice. Probably if I was to pick one out of those is drilling it. Anytime I haven't done a huge amount of seminars in my life. I've maybe 5 or 6 or something like that. But I'll always after the seminar drill what they taught in the seminar, because typically in seminars that instructor is teaching what they're like an area of their expertise, like I said, if if Andre Galvão teaches a seminar, he's probably not going to be teaching, bolos and crab ride. He could, but he's probably not. Right? Like you're going to be, like if Kieren teaches a seminar, it's probably going to be like some super sick worm/lapel stuff, So I always go and drill that afterwards. And the same applies to a private, right? You've had more specific tailored guidance. It's not like you then walk out of that private and go, that's been matrixed into my head and, it's perfectly mastered and off I go. No, man, repetition.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially if you are paying all that money, and if you're having a hard time, like we said in the outset, justifying the cost and you're not doing these things or you're not willing to do these things, then man, maybe don't do the private. You know what I mean? Like maybe you're not ready or maybe it's not something that you're really interested in doing, which is perfectly okay. Like no one's saying you have to do these things. Like you got to black belt doing one private in your life.
Yeah. And I did it when I was a white belt.
There you go. So
I did it at the end of white. I did it right at the end of my white belt. I believe it might have even been later that day, actually. I think it was. I think I did the private before class and then at the end of class got my blue belt.
There you go.
Yeah. So like I did
You paid for your blue belt.
Shut up, Kieren. Told you that in confidence. Yeah. I will. One more thing that I will say just as from the instructor's point of view seems obvious, but be respectful of the instructor's time. I know you're paying for their time, but you're paying for that 1 hour of time. I see it all the time where people like rock up 5-10 minutes late to their private. Like let's say the private starts at 12 and they rock up at 5 past 12, 10 past 12, and then so they think the private's going to go to 10 past 1. Man, you were late. Like you lost 5 or 10 minutes of your private, right? Like you've paid for an hour of their time, and that goes with anything. Like imagine if you had a physio appointment and you rock up late, do they just push back? No, man. Like you just like lose that 5-10 minutes of your physio or whatever it is, because A, it's just disrespectful to the person's time. B, some people make their most of their jiu-jitsu salary off privates. So they might have a private at 1 o'clock, like straight after yours, so off you go, it's on to the next, or they might have a class after it. I see it a lot. People think that, I've got this hour of time regardless of when it starts. Be respectful to your instructor's time, right?
Yeah.
They're there on time. You should be
wasting someone's time.
If you're late, like that can happen, but it's not the end of the world. If you're late, you're late.
Yeah.
Shit can happen, but I mean, that's on you.
Yeah, exactly.
If you're late, unfortunately, you lost that 5, 10, 15 minutes of your private.
Yeah. Yeah. Wasting someone's time is one of the worst things you can do because you can never get time back. You know what I mean? And I think there's like
that's
this
deep, bro.
Yeah, legit. And there's these like there's this Buddhist saying that's got something to do with that. And then like basically the Buddhist philosophy, I forget who said it, but I'm pretty sure it's some Buddhist, whatever.
Yeah. That
anyway, the concept is, this is the point I was trying to get across. The concept is that these people always carry a book with them because
Wait, who carries the book?
The Buddhists, right? Because if anyone's ever late, they start reading the book so they don't waste that time. So they don't put the other person in the position of like wasting their time, which is like one of the worst sins or whatever. It's fucking weird. But yeah, the basic concept is like you have to respect someone's time because you cannot give them their time back, right?
It's kind of like that. It's kind of like that mentality of, like therapists or psychologists will talk about that it's not someone else's fault if you get angry or upset or whatever, like they put a lot of the responsibility on the individual. Like you choose how to react to certain situations, you know, and that
Stoicism, man. Yeah.
yeah. Well, there you go, bro. I'm like full of knowledgeable shit. You know,
Let's just stick to jiu-jitsu. Hey, we know nothing about anything, and I don't even know anything about jiu-jitsu. So,
but you've heard that before, right?
Yes.
Like you've heard that sort of concept of like, you know, you wake up and get to choose if you're in a good mood or
exactly.
whatever, right?
Yeah.
Like it's not as simple as that. Hence why there's professionals who spend their whole career studying these sorts of things.
Yeah,
but in a nutshell, they kind of say things along those lines. It kind of makes me think of that where I'm choosing for it not to be like you're wasting my time because I got to read for 10 minutes. Like my time wasn't wasted.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm not putting you in a position where you've wasted my time.
Yeah. Even though really you did waste my time,
Yes.
I'm not saying you wasted my time. It's like, no, you wasted your own time. I read for 10 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Do you mind teaching me how to read?
No. But I do want to close out with something a little bit different. Like from, you being the coach, you've given more privates than you've taught. I've received more privates.
Given more privates than I've taken.
Taken rather, yeah. So you've taught more privates than you've received.
Yeah,
Is it received? You've received a private. You've learned
taken
from?
a private.
Taken a private. Okay.
Wait,
so
hang on. I've. Oh, so now he finds the buttons.
But the point I'm trying to make is I'm the student, you're the teacher. So from the student's perspective, there's some things that I have found that really help with getting the most out of my private from the student's perspective that I want to just talk about. And that is that I really find it beneficial if the instructor after the private sends me like a one paragraph, very, very short. It can be completely shorthand from their perspective, a summary of what we did and their emphasis points in case I missed it in my note taking.
I've done that before.
I think that is super valuable. And then
if you filmed it, then maybe it's maybe not as necessary.
Yeah.
But I've definitely done it before, shot through WhatsApp messages afterwards, just being like, these are the techniques and, remember with this one, this grip and this one. Yeah.
Literally techniques. Say, for example, you do 4 techniques in an hour. You list out the 4 and then give one key point for each. That's it. That's it. Just one sentence. And then what I would do once I received that, I would then use that to write my notes on.
Make your notes.
Or to double check my notes or whatever.
And if any I reckon we maybe got some instructors sitting here listening being like, what? I'm not doing that.
They paid you $100.
Go the extra mile, bitch.
Yeah, you just got paid $100.
It's like my physio, every consult you have with him and he gives you whatever exercises, he always texts you videos of those exercises and then writes out like the reps and everything you're going to do. Most physios don't do that.
Yeah,
most physios
give like a little stick figure drawing or something.
Yeah, they'll like explain to you in person or show you, I want you to do this and this and this, 3 sets of 10 and off you go. Whereas he sends you videos of every single session you have with him. Extra mile.
Retention, baby. Yeah. So that's really, really beneficial. And also another thing, and this one is a bit of a gray zone and I'd like your input and I'm on the fence about it, but also a little bit of support after the private would be good. As in
what do you mean?
So for example, if I do a private with you, I do all the 5 steps, I drill it, teach someone, blah, blah, blah. You send me a summary, all of that good shit. And then I spend 2 weeks doing it. And it's not like I need to do another private to solve the problem, but I have like this one thing. Oh, hey, I can't remember. What do I do with this grip? I think that within reason, depending on who it is, again, like you wouldn't be doing this with Craig Jones or whoever, because whatever. But to message the coach or whomever, particularly if it's your coach or a friend like Jeremy, and just ask one question and get a response.
Yeah,
I think a little bit of feedback after it.
Yeah, I think. You hit the nail on the head saying it's a bit gray.
It's very gray.
Because it's going to depend. Like if you did a private with me, obviously we're in the gym together every day. You're just going to ask me in person.
Yeah.
Right. If it's someone that is a bit more removed but still close, like in your case, Jeremy, I'm sure you could text him and
he wanted me to Skype him like fucking
shit
when I was drilling it. Like but it's a bit different.
But yeah, if whatever, Huffer Mendez is in town and you do a private with him. And I mean, what are you going to do 2 weeks later? Like you don't have his phone number, email. I mean, that's going to be, you're not going to get any 2-week post support, I doubt, you know, and I think you'd be crazy to expect it.
I mean, you'd be crazy to expect it, but I don't think many people would try it. So if you did try it, you might get a response.
Well, yeah, I mean,
you know what I mean?
It is super grey. It's going to depend. Maybe you do that private with Huffer Mendez and you guys have a really good rapport and you kind of within that one, you know, seminar and 1 hour private you did together, you actually, I mean, it's not like you became pen pals, but you know, you actually hit it off and got along really well. Maybe you had a really nice rapport that you feel like, man, I could totally message him on Instagram and, you know, other people.
Worst they can do is not reply. Like, for example,
well, no, the worst they can do is block you.
Yeah, tell you to get fucked. I have something similar. Like I offer nutrition consults for jiu-jitsu people. And sometimes when people get like just a basic nutrition consult from me because they're preparing for a comp, man, they check in with me all the time. And it's not like they're paying like normally I would charge like a ongoing weekly fee to have unlimited support. It's part of the package. But man, I'm not going to not respond. If someone emails me this question, hey man, like, should I cut my carbs here? Normally it's like, yeah, well, look, you're now asking me to give you another service, but I'm never going to ignore them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I would just not do that because it's part of, you know, my responsibility to that individual because I've sold them a service. But at the same time, I've had
Kieren
people
writes back, eat a dick, fuck off.
But legit, I've had people in the past that have abused that sort of.
Oh, for sure. You would.
That respect, you know what I mean? Like, and that's, you know, that's my fault as the professional, not putting my foot down and saying, hey man, like, yep, you know, drawing boundaries, you know what I mean? Like putting a line in the sand, drawing boundaries and say, hey, yeah, look, you're asking for this other service that I provide. Here is the information for that service.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I have fallen into that pit a lot. But I think there is nothing wrong with, as you put it, going that extra mile. And as an instructor, it will probably help you with retention and you may get more business from that person in the future if you just go that little bit extra that you may be thinking, you know what, I don't need to do this or whatever.
I don't do it because I don't like privates. So
yeah.
I don't want more of them.
Yeah, fair enough.
No. I think that's super true. Like if you'll every now and again, you'll have that one person who abuses the system a little bit too much. I mean, I think that's unavoidable. And how much you let them abuse the system, I guess, is on you. But
exactly.
But you'll find there's actually the majority of people do the right thing, right? There's actually a whole, I don't want to say study would be the wrong word, but there's a whole, I don't know. I'm just going to pick the word thesis. That sounds appropriate. It's a whole like study and thesis on first impressions, you know, and the reason, in a nutshell, the reason that first impressions are so important is because we put way more emphasis on bad actions than we do on good actions. And the reason we put more emphasis on bad actions is because the majority of people do the right thing. So when someone does the air quotes wrong thing, it sticks out, right? So the point I'm trying to make is, there'll be someone who abuses the system, but don't let that offend you. Like the reason that sticks out and grinds your gears so much is because it's ingrained in you that it's an anomaly. And you should be looking at the positive side, which is that the majority of people do the right thing.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
And it's on you. The more experience you get, the more confident you'll be to say, hey man, like, thanks for reaching out. This is the service that you're after.
Yeah.
And but I think getting a little summary from the instructor and depending on the individual, again, operating within that gray, be respectful of their time, having a little bit of support after it. I think that's
if you
reasonable.
reach out, if they don't write back, try send a nude.
Yeah.
And if that doesn't work, I mean, just leave it at that.
Yeah.
1-2 nudes max.
Yeah. Yeah. And make sure to get the underside as well.
Oh, God.
And on that underside note, thanks for listening to this episode of the Beyond Jiu-Jitsu podcast. If you like the show and want to support us further, you can do so over on our Instagram. Jump over to Beyond Jiu-Jitsu _podcast on Instagram. That's where we live. And if you want to be a Patreon, we have some goodies on Patreon. We do monthly Ask Me Anythings exclusive to Patreon episodes, that sort of gig. And if you want to get a private with Adam via the internet, insofar as send in your technique and he will give you a technique breakdown and perhaps a little instructional on how to improve, like a fix my game sort of deal. We also offer that on Patreon. So jump over there. But until next time, thanks for listening.